The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news comes to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories. With the news at this time, I am Tiana Jordan. A very good morning to you. First, the lead stories. Former Finance Minister Winston Jordan was granted $3 million bail on charges of misconduct in public office when he appeared before Chief Magistrate Anne McLennan yesterday. Opposition leader Joseph Harmon has sought to justify why he should remain as opposition leader. 3 civil society organizations are calling on the President Irfan Ali-led government to delay a parliamentary vote on the Natural Resource Fund Bill scheduled for today, Wednesday, December 29th. And in regional news, the main opposition Democratic Labour Party in Barbados has blamed a non-caring Prime Minister Mia Mottley for calling a snap general election in the midst of a pandemic and urged supporters to boot the ruling Barbados Labour Party out of office on January 19th next year. For the international news, we'll be bringing to you the latest from the BBC World Service. Coming up in just a moment, the details of these and other stories.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
And now the news in detail. Former Finance Minister under a Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change APNU plus AFC government, Winston Jordan, on Tuesday appeared in court on a charge of misconduct in public office. He was granted $3 million bail by Chief Magistrate Anne McLennan and ordered to return to court on January 14th. The charges state that while being Minister of Finance and the concerned Minister for the National Industrial and Commercial Investments Limited, NISIL, sold a prime property to BK International for $20 million, which carried at the time a market value of $5 billion that was grossly undervalued. The prosecution's case says that the transaction amounted to an abuse of the public's trust and without reasonable excuse or justification. His defense lawyer, Royce Dale Ford, says that the decisions had been taken by NISIL and Cabinet, and so the minister did not commit a crime.
After that process, Mr. Jordan would simply have been performing an administrative function by which he would have been signing and vesting order. The Cabinet decision would have authorized the sale and the circumstances and conditions of the sale as a consequence of receiving a report and a documentation and a memorandum from NISIL itself outlining those circumstances. So at no time whatsoever Mr. Winston Jordan would have been acted solo or would he have embarked on a mission or a part of his own.
The former finance minister says he fears nothing and he is confident that the charges will fail.
For me, and my family is very unfortunate because I've given my life to this country at all levels, local and national and regionally, and I've never turned around. And I've worked with all different administrations, and I see this more political persecution, which is a sad evil.
The former finance minister is a harsh critic of the government. Opposition leader Joseph Harmon, who is part of the former minister's legal team, says the charge is an attempt by the governing PPP to muzzle dissenting voices. Mr. Jordan is also represented by attorney-at-law and leader of the AFC, Kemraj Ramjatan, Darren Wade, and Member of Parliament, Roysdale Ford. Opposition leader Joseph Harmon on Tuesday sought to justify why he should remain in that post. He says that as opposition leader, he represents a larger bloc of more than 200,000 Guyanese voters instead of the estimated 1,700 delegates who voted at the party's recent internal elections. Mr. Aubrey Norton was elected PNCR leader.
The leader of the opposition is representative of over 218,000 persons who went to the electorate and voted. And so that is my mandate. The mandate of the leader of the PNC is a separate mandate altogether. I believe that the two positions that we should work together very closely, but they are two separate positions altogether.
However, Mr. Harmon says he will be prepared to step down from the post of opposition leader if this will help the PNCR to confront the governing People's Progressive Party.
If in fact my situation, my sitting there, makes it difficult for the members of parliament to be able to challenge the PPP and to confront them at every level, then certainly I will consider it. So it is a matter though of our strength in the National Assembly, our ability to confront the PPP on their parliamentary agenda. That is what is important.
Mr. Harmon says the opposition leader and the PNCR should work very closely. Previously, he had been co-opted on the PNCR's last executive when Mr. David Granger had been party leader. Mr. Harmon says that he can be co-opted again, or he can rely on information from other PNCR executive members in taking positions in the National Assembly.
Invariably, the leader of the opposition is asked to be co-opted as a member, or he can identify a person, a member of parliament, who can be so co-opted so that the members of parliament are kept informed. At this stage, we have the chief whip, who is the person that really keeps us in line, is a member of the central executive. And several other MPs are members of the central executive. So I do not see a problem with respect to the information which comes from the party that will inform the decisions which are made at the level of the parliament.
Opposition leader Joseph Harmon. 3 non-governmental organizations have intensified pressure on the government not to go ahead with debating the new Natural Resource Fund law. The Trade Union Congress, Transparency Institute of Guyana, Inc., and Article 13, the civil society group formed to promote inclusionary and participatory governance, have publicly called on the government to delay a parliamentary vote on the Natural Resource Fund bill scheduled for this Wednesday. The grouping wants the Natural Resource Fund bill to be referred to a select committee of the National Assembly to allow members of the public to make recommendations. The joint statement by the grouping says it considers it entirely unreasonable, even if the best of circumstances, for Guyanese and their parliamentary representatives to have just 8 working days to consider the text and implications of undoubtedly the most significant piece of legislation of the PPPC administration. The bill was gazetted on December 15th and tabled in the National Assembly on December 16th. The organizations say there is no sufficient time to consider the full text of the bill. They say that the oversight provisions in the Natural Resource Fund Act passed by the APNU plus AFC government have been dismantled. They say they also find contentious that the bill allows the government easy access to spend from the fund and emergency purposes. The civil society grouping says the bill places the monies in the fund in the hands of a board of directors appointed by the president and that the board reports to the Minister of Finance. The Trade Union Congress, Article 13, and Transparency Institute of Guyana also note that a Public Accountability and Oversight Committee comprising of 9 persons provides vaguely for non-governmental oversight of the fund. They say the fund will be operationally managed by the Bank of Guyana, whose governor is also appointed by the president. President Irfan Ali yesterday sought to justify his government pressing forward with amendments to the Natural Resource Fund bill in the face of calls for a hold on the parliamentary vote. President Ali says the existing law is not constitutional since it was passed by a government that had been defeated in a no-confidence motion.
The old bill is unconstitutional and illegitimate. We seem to forget that this bill was passed by the Parliament in January 2019 after the no-confidence motion had been approved. So the bill has no legitimacy. The bill has no legitimacy. It was passed in Parliament after the no-confidence. So it's unconstitutional. That is the first thing.
The president says the government made a promise on the campaign trail to amend the bill, and the government is keeping that promise. He says there are also fatal flaws in the act which necessitate changes.
Before the act could have been made operational. Now, what are these fatal flaws that the act had inside? The governance structure. Let us start with the governance structure. It was severely deficient, with no governing body, such as a board of directors. The Santiago Principles require a governing body. So let's start from there. There was no governing body, as is required by the Santiago Principles.
In the amendments, President Ali pointed out that the finance minister powers would be reduced and given to the board of directors. The president says the bill will be subject to a full parliamentary debate where the opposition will be present to make their contribution. Civil society is calling for the bill to be sent to a select parliamentary committee and be opened for public consultations and contributions before passage in the National Assembly. A new and united Guyana ANUG is accusing the People's Progressive Party's policy is to get rid of necessary safeguards for proper governance. Describing this as an alarming trend, ANUG says the PPP is marginalizing Guyanese who are not its supporters. ANUG says the Irfan Ali-led administration is favoring its supporters while shaping bodies that have been established by law to easily access state resources to pursue a divisive agenda. That small political party is blaming the PPP administration for using its parliamentary majority to consolidate its power and streamline its unobstructed access to state funds. At the same time, ANUG says the government is sidelining any non-PPP Guyanese from access to information, which will enable scrutiny of its management of the country and its resources. It says the government used their majority in Parliament to authorize an increase in the amount of money it may borrow. It then began to spend the large sums of money on ad hoc and poorly monitored cash handouts and inadequately audited and poorly monitored contract awards. According to that party, this expenditure could only have been funded by increased borrowing and it is likely that borrowing was done against the collateral of the petroleum fund. ANOG says most recently, the government has indicated its intention to use its majority in Parliament to amend the petroleum legislation by removing any meaningful safeguard against its unrestricted access to the oil fund. The party forecasts that the spending spree will now ramp up. The party accused the government of failing to address the concerns of public servants and consulting with unions, but instead punished protesting public servants. The Health Ministry says while there is a decline in COVID cases, there are still serious cases of COVID that cause persons to be hospitalized. Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, detailed the data during his COVID update yesterday.
We have currently 741 active cases across Guyana, and of those cases we have 32 persons who are currently in a hospital, with 22 of them being at the Ocean View Hospital. Of the persons hospitalized at Ocean View, we have 7 of them in the ICU. Currently, overall, we have 17 patients that require oxygen, so it shows that they still have a severe form of COVID, and we all have to be taking the precautions.
The death toll remains at 1,050 persons. The ministry says it has partially vaccinated 410,181 persons as of Monday, December 26th, and 295,601 adults are fully vaccinated. There are 30,214 children ages 12 to 17 years old partially vaccinated and 21,527 fully vaccinated. To date, 10,708 booster shots were administered. A 36-year-old Linden man led police on a high-speed chase yesterday morning in the mining town before crashing his car and was arrested for the alleged possession of an unlicensed gun and ammunition. Police say the now hospitalized man, under police guard at the Mackenzie Hospital complex, was acting suspiciously while patrol ranks were responding to a complaint of noise nuisance where a private party was being held. Police say 2 males were observed some 15 feet away and quickly boarded a car and sped off. The ranks followed and it turned into a high-speed chase. The car stopped briefly and the second male got off and made good his escape as the chase continued. Police searched the vehicle after it crashed and found the 9mm weapon and 11 live matching rounds. Police are probing the incident. And now in regional news. Police are trying to determine if 100 people who were on board a pleasure boat in Trinidad on Boxing Day breached the public health regulations. According to the TNT Guardian News, the group, which included the vessel's owner, was questioned by police and later released on Sunday night. The organizer of the event is said to be the son of a government minister. Trinidad and Tobago police say that between 5:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. on Sunday, officers were told there was an event taking place on the vessel named Ocean Pelican. Police say that the owner and 100 other persons were all detained, processed, and released. Police say they have since asked the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to advise whether there were any breaches of the public health regulations. The chairman of the St. Lucia COVID-19 Management Center, Cletus Springer, is warning of a 5th wave of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. He says that St. Lucians should not be surprised at the news because they had been forewarned. In a Facebook page post, He says that the month of December is one of heightened social activity and international travel. He stated that daily updates over the past week show evidence of a dramatic upward trend across all indicators. Latest figures released by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs on Monday showed that 38 new cases of the COVID-19 had been recorded from a total of 345 samples, which were collected on December 25th and 26th. The new cases have brought the total number of cases diagnosed in the country to date to 13,357, with 204 active cases. The island has recorded 295 deaths since the first case was registered in March last year. The ministry said to date a total of 49,067 individuals have been fully vaccinated. Another 6,529 are partially vaccinated, and 3,062 have received their booster shot. Barbados's Prime Minister Mia Mottley says she will be involving opposition leader Joseph Attlee to work out ways of ensuring that Barbadians can vote safely despite the coronavirus. Barbadians will go to the polls on January 19th in a snap election ahead of 2023.
It is my intention to have meetings convened of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission and the COVID Cabinet Subcommittee so that they may advise how best we structure the actual voting process to reflect an appreciation of the realities of COVID in our midst. I will also ensure that the leader of the opposition and myself are fully briefed after these meetings, and that we can update you in a matter of days on any agreed upon changes with respect to simplifying the conduct of elections in this environment.
Parliament was dissolved on Monday immediately to make way for the election. In Barbados, the main opposition Democratic Labour Party, DLP, has blamed a non-caring Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, for calling a snap general election in the midst of a pandemic. The DLP has urged supporters to boot the ruling Barbados Labour Party, BLP, out of office on January 19th next year. Mottley, in a radio and television broadcast on Monday night, announced that nomination day will be on January 3rd and that the polls were being held 18 months before her first term in office is due to end. She said it was important for a united Barbados to face the new year and blamed what she termed the silly season for Barbadians being divided on the future socio-economic development of the island. But in a statement, the DLP, which was swept out of office in 2018 by a 13-0 margin, described the move towards calling a snap election as a dark day for the country. She said that it is clear that the government of the day has succumbed to feelings of panic and that the nation's first call, which is its people's safety, has been set aside to pursue selfish ends which expose their people to great harm and possible death. The PASA says that the DLP is appealing to Barbadians to seize the opportunity of relief and arm themselves with courage, determination and hope, and rally to the polls to exercise their franchise and send a clear and decisive message to the outgoing government that their well-being is paramount. And now for the international news, the latest from the BBC World Service.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. One of Hong Kong's last remaining pro-democracy publications, Stand News, has announced it will cease operations and dismiss all its employees. It comes shortly after its offices were raided by police, resulting in 7 arrests. Danny Vincent is at its offices in Hong Kong.
Earlier today, they put out a statement on their social media accounts, on their Facebook page, saying that this operation will no longer be operating. Earlier in the day, of course, hundreds of police officers raided Stand News. A number of former and current journalists were arrested. I've been speaking to many of the journalists over the last few months. There was a sense of impending doom, you could say, about the fate of this organisation. But there was also a lack of clarity. Many journalists and activists often claim that the lines in this city, the red lines, are shifting very quickly.
Citing a national security law imposed on Hong Kong by Beijing, the police accused the organisation of publishing articles inciting hatred against the authorities. Critics say the law was radically stifled dissent. Speaking at a news conference, an official from Hong Kong Police's National Security Department said the intention of the raids was not aimed at disbanding media organisations.
The number one concern for us is don't be biased. Don't be biased. You know well how to report, how to be a responsible reporter, how to make a non-biased report to your readers. That's all I can give you. Because we are not targeting the reporter, we are not targeting the media. We just target the national security law, the offences. If you just won't report, I don't think that is a problem.
The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is due to chair a meeting of his cabinet as the number of Omicron cases of the coronavirus increases. The authorities in the capital, Delhi, have declared a yellow alert following a spike in infections. Professor Srinath Reddy is from the Public Health Foundation of India in Delhi.
We are now seeing a rise in cases, particularly being documented from the large cities. A 70% increase in the cases in Mumbai, a 50% jump in cases in Delhi. We know that it's a very infectious variant. It has entered India. So we are anticipating a rise. But at the moment, there is no rush on hospitals. Most of the cases that have been infected are reported to be having only mild symptoms. And therefore, that's the reassuring feature.
The veteran former US Senator Harry Reid has died at the age of 82. He led the Democrats in the Senate for 12 years and played a key role in taking the most significant legislation of Barack Obama's presidency through Congress. In a tribute, Mr. Obama said he wouldn't have been president without Harry Reid's encouragement and support. This is Moira Alderson with the latest world news from the BBC. Environmental activists in the Philippines have criticised the government's decision to lift a 4-year ban on new open-pit mines. The mines produce valuable metals and complex ores. The government stopped the practice in 2017, saying it was responsible for widespread ecological damage. But the administration of Rodrigo Duterte now says open-pit mines are an essential industry in the country's recovery from the coronavirus pandemic. A former British Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, has called on the global community to urgently help Afghanistan by committing to the largest humanitarian response ever agreed for a single nation. Mr. Brown said that with 23 million people facing starvation, an international funding conference should be quickly convened to secure a $4.5 billion aid package.
We have to do 3 things, I think. First of all, the World Bank has got to get the humanitarian cash into organisations like the World Food Programme and UNICEF to get them to the people of Afghanistan. Secondly, we've got to support the informal NGOs that are working in Afghanistan. And thirdly, there is a mediating body, which is Qatar and the Islamic Development Bank, and I think they can actually help get money into Afghanistan.
Lawyers for Queen Elizabeth's second son, Prince Andrew, have filed papers to try to stop a US civil case in which he's accused of sexual assault. The documents question whether the woman making the allegation, Virginia Giuffre, can bring the case in New York, saying she lives in Australia rather than in the US. Prince Andrew has denied all the allegations against him. Conservationists in Mexico, assisted by a British zoo, have reintroduced a species of fish that was previously declared extinct back to the wild. The freshwater tequila fish had lived in the rivers and lakes in the southwest of the country, but was driven to extinction by pollution and the presence of other invasive species. Conservationists say the population is now expanding successfully. BBC News.
The news came to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return to work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner with results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
And now to end the news, here is a recap of the leads. Former Finance Minister Winston Jordan was granted $3 million bail on charges of misconduct in public office when he appeared before Chief Magistrate Anne McLennan yesterday. Opposition leader Joseph Harman has sought to justify why he should remain as opposition leader. 3 civil society organizations are calling on the President Irfan Ali-led government to delay a parliamentary vote on the Natural Resource Fund bill scheduled for today, Wednesday, December 29th. And in regional news, the main opposition Democratic Labour Party in Barbados has blamed a non-caring Prime Minister Mia Mottley for calling a snap general election in the midst of a pandemic and urged supporters to boot the ruling Barbados Labour Party out of office on January 19th next year. And that's the end of the news.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.
The Board of Directors, Management and Staff of News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM
would like to extend our gratitude to the following companies
for being a part of our 12 Days of Christmas promotion:
Giftland Mall,
Giftland Office Max,
Food Max Superstore,
Giftland Electronics Store,
Jade's Walk,
Pinnacle Business Service,
Exclusive Dress to Impress,
Polo Tropical,
Church's Chicken,
Dairy Queen,
and Scene.
Thank you for putting smiles on the faces of all our winners.
And we look forward to working with you in the new year.
A very Merry Guyanese Christmas to you, your wonderful staff, and their families.
And may the new year bring you blessings beyond your expectations.